Chair, I can confirm we are now live.
So make a start, yes?
Yes, please. Everyone's
happy, right? Okay, good, I was going to say good afternoon, but it's good morning, first time. Good morning and welcome to the East Devon District Council's virtual Housing Review Board meeting on the 29th of April 2021. I am your chair, Tony McCullum, and I would also like to welcome anyone watching this meeting via live streaming. All participants here today are taking part remotely, and as well as being live streamed, the meeting is being recorded. So please bear this in mind throughout, and may I remind you to be careful of your language. May I also remind members that the code of conduct applies throughout this meeting. We also reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who is disrupting this meeting by whatever means. Please turn any telephone devices off or to silent. As this housing reform meeting depends on internet connection and power supply, in the event of a break in internet connection or power cut, please bear with us. We will try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we are not able to reconnect, we will consider the meeting to be adjourned and reconvene at a later date. Please check the committee page on our webpage for details. Please make sure all microphones are muted when you are not speaking to avoid any background noise levels. Keep points short and do not repeat points that has already been made, and please do not interrupt. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your electronic blue hand and wait to be called. All members have been sent the agenda for this meeting. Any members of the public who want to view the agenda can do so by visiting our webpage www.eastdevon.gov.uk. We will now start the meeting by doing a roll call of the committee members here present. Can you please now unmute your microphones, and when you hear your name, please confirm by saying present. When you have confirmed you are present, please mute your microphone again. Thank you.
So, Councillor McCullum.
Present.
Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Hall.
Present.
Councillor Parr. Councillor Taylor.
Present.
I had apologies from Christine Drew. So Cindy Collier.
Present.
I also had apologies from Christine Morrison. Peter Sullivan. Kat Summers.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay. So I can confirm we are correct today. We have enough here. Okay, agenda number 1, public speaking. Any public speakers?
No, we have no members of the public registered to speak, Chair.
Okay. Item number 2, minutes of the previous meeting. If everyone has a comment on the set of minutes for the 21st January 2021, please do so by raising your blue hand. If I have no blue hands raised, I will take it as an indication that you agree the minutes of the previous meeting. I assume there's no blue hands.
No, Chair, that looks like they're agreed. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I need to. Okay, I take it the minutes is finally agreed. Thank you. Agenda number 3, apologies. Item 3, apologies.
I've had apologies from Christine Morrison and Christine Drew.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think it sounded like there were some apologies from Peter Sullivan.
Yeah.
As well.
Okay. Yeah. It's not well. Okay. Item 4, declaration of interest.
I'll do this by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your declaration, including which agenda item your declaration relates to, if it's personal or prejudicial declaration, and what exactly the interest is, please. So, Councillor McCullum.
None.
Councillor Chamberlain's just joined us, so welcome, Councillor Chamberlain.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have no declarations of interest, thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you. All personal. My mum is a council tenant. She also uses Safeguard. Also, just in case it comes up, I'm a Devon County councillor, and obviously we're in a time of purdah. Thank you.
Councillor Parr, who is not present. Councillor Taylor.
No interest.
Okay. Cindy Collier.
East Devon District Council tenant.
And Kat Summers.
Yeah, still here.
I think so. Let me just check, Chair.
She is
So,
here.
Kat, could you unmute yourself, Kat, please, and state if you've got any declarations of interest?
Can you hear me or not?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, tenant.
Okay.
Is that everyone?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Okay.
right.
Sorry, Councillor Chamberlain's got her hand up though.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to confirm on my declaration of interest in this meeting. It is on my main declaration of interest, but just for the purposes of this meeting, I am also employed by Exeter City Council.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Item 5, matters of urgency. Are there any?
There are none, Chair.
No. Okay. Item 6, confidential exempt items. There is one confidential item which the officers recommend should be dealt with in this way. Moving on, matters for discussion. Item 7, forward plan, which I believe is Joe. Joe here? Is it Joe or Joanne? Joanne, sorry. Joe.
You're on mute, Joe.
You're on mute.
It's always one.
Yeah.
There's always one, and it's usually me. Sorry. Yeah. Right, hang on a moment here. Let's have a look. So, whoops. Sorry, hang on a minute. Just lost my little spot here. So, yeah, forward plan. Our intention is for the next HRB, if the chair is in approval, to actually start to discuss the implications of the new Building Safeties Act and also the implications of the white paper. So we're thinking that it might be quite good because it's such a wide-ranging piece of legislation. We'd quite like to almost have that, apart from the standing agenda items, we'd like to have that almost as the theme for the next HRB, if people are okay with that.
Fine by me.
Okay, so obviously, like I say, the normal standing recommendations items will stand, but it's such a big piece of work for us. It needs quite a lot of preparation. So yeah, if we could just focus the next one on that, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda. Sorry to catch up here a minute. Yes, thank you, Joe. I will first invite non-members to speak by raising their blue hands. And non-members, when the non-members have spoken, I will then invite members of the committee to speak. Non-members, please indicate if you wish to speak by raising your blue hand. I can't see my hands, and we're relying on someone telling me. Anybody? I can't see my blue hands.
No blue hands outside the committee at the moment, Chair.
Okay. To the committee members, any blue hands?
Yep, Councillor Ian Hall wishes to speak, Chair.
Okay. Go ahead, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, and to the portfolio holder, Megan, you possibly recollect email communications and discussions in the past about all housing providers, including housing associations and East Devon District Council, looking at a standardised joint tenancy agreement. And I think you'll probably remember the the essence of this was that everybody who lives in the East Devon area can equally have the same understanding of where they can go, and so we're having more of a uniform approach. I recollect that John Goding does have discussions with other housing providers, and I think going on the forward plan, and I don't necessarily mean now, because we have got a lot of challenges, Chair, going on, especially with coming out of COVID, etc. But I think this is an area that we really need to see if there is any legs in this, that we can actually get a really good standardized tenancy agreement across the board.
Okay. Thank you, Ian.
Chairman, it's legal here. Can I comment on that?
Yes, of course you can.
Obviously, housing associations tenancies are regulated by the 1988 Housing Act. Our secure tenancies are regulated by the 1985 Housing Act. And until such time as there is legislative reform, I suspect that there's no room to actually change tenancy agreements and have them standardised, because our tenants will have different rights under a secure tenancy to housing association tenancies under the 1988 Act, which have different assured rights. So this will have to be something from government as a strategy that comes down from central government to all social housing providers. So I don't actually see that there's any play in this at the moment until we are directed from above. That's all I wanted to say.
Chairman, may I just come in with a quick comment, please?
Yes, okay.
Is it, with your permission, Chair, and with the permission of Megan, is it okay if we maybe discuss this offline to see where areas that maybe all three of us could pick up, please?
Yeah, that's fine with me. Megan, are you happy with that? Yeah. Okay, and we'll deal with that one later, as you say, privately. Megan's got her hand up.
Megan, you're on mute.
Sorry, yes, I am. Sorry about that. Yes, I was just going to say, yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I just want, if we're going to do that anyway, I just wondered whether there was an initial comment from Joe or John about that at this point, or if we just want to leave it until we discuss it later. But I'm more than happy to have a meeting about it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's best left till later, and we can deal with that one first. I think if everyone's happy with that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for raising it, Ian, anyway.
John's got his hand up. John?
Just to say, Chair, I agree entirely with what Giles has advised. The board, they are very different regimes, although there's some commonality around some of the terms and conditions that apply. So I think it probably is best that we explore this offline, because I can see lots of difficulties in aligning tenancy agreements. Thanks.
Okay.
Right, thank you, John. All right, obviously, as there's no recommendation, I assume it's just to be noted and move on. Yes? Okay. Item 8, housing strategy refresh and scoping. I believe that's John.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So our housing strategy, excuse me, is one of our key policy documents. It's part of the policy framework of the council, and it links in with a whole series of other strategic documents, policies, strategies that we have in the council. So it links very closely with our planning policy, our homeless and rough sleeping strategy, private sector housing policies, and our housing revenue account business plan. Numerous additional policies, some of which are on the agenda for a refresh today, also sit under the housing strategy document. There is national guidance on producing housing strategies, and it's essentially the local authority's vision for housing in its area, should set objectives, targets, and how the authority intends to not only manage its own stock, but also deliver new, affordable and social housing for residents of the district in housing need. Strategies typically prepared by local authorities. They set out a whole series of objectives, and the idea is that you consult with your stakeholders. So in the case of bringing it to the board, tenants have a key interest in what the council's housing strategy says. What we're suggesting in this report is to essentially keep it simple, keep it consistent, and retain some of those things that we've had in our previous housing strategies that I believe have served us well. So some of the principles around a decent home for all has worked for us, a high level ambition of the council, but also around providing more homes, improving our communities, and ensuring that we have satisfied customers. Those are some of our high level principles that we've worked for in previous housing strategies, and I'm suggesting that we retain those. Those are set out in a table. I found it a useful summary table in the report. Also in the report, I've posed a number of questions really for the board and other stakeholders in section 3, really to check whether you're content with the format and approach that we've advocated in the draft housing strategy statement. The draft itself sets out some of our housing data. We've tried to set a context. We've described the housing situation in East Devon, some of the challenges that we face, linked to some of the research that we've done. So Your Home, Your Wellbeing, that piece of research that we tracked through the board has been integrated and tried to reflect what matters to our customers. There's an action plan that's associated with the strategy, where some of the meat of the document really is, and a set of objectives, which team in housing would lead the particular action, and how that links with the council's priorities. We need to include some additional information in the strategy. You'll see there's some gaps, there's a little bit of tidying up to do. We'll reflect the board's input. We'll insert that into any final document that is produced. And finally, Chair, I wanted to express my appreciation to Tim, our project officer, who's done most of the hard work in drafting the strategy for us. Happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Okay. Are there any, well, first of all, is there any non-members who wish to speak? Please do so by raising your blue hand. We have got Steve, Councillor Gallagher as the first one up.
No, I'm quite happy with Steve, Chair. Thank you, John. Excellent report. The only comment I would have is under where you asked the questions, 3.5, are there any areas that you'd like to be included? And I know it's a bone of contention with me, but I really do think we need to be, what's the word I'm looking for? We've got to be more proactive with surveys that we get back from customers or from tenants, because, you know, every time I raise it, I'm told it is going to be looked at and it's going to be done. And to my knowledge, it's still not happening. So I think that's an area that we are, to me, we're weak on, and that needs refreshing or building up, please.
Okay. John, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, very happy to include that, Chair. That is something we should be paying attention to. Customer surveys, as I mentioned, are kind of what matters to customers, and we'll reflect that in revised draft. Thanks, okay. Councillor Gazard.
Thank you, John. We have got Councillor Rowland. Jack.
Thanks, Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Appreciate that. I just wanted to sort of really highlight the issue about the lack of, I hate using the phrase affordable homes, because I prefer to talk about council and social housing, which if you just look at the national picture, this target nationally of trying to provide 345,000 homes nationally has never been met. And the closest it ever got was in 2019 when 170,000 homes were actually built. But out of that 170,000, only 26,000 were actually homes built for council housing or by housing association. So I really want to see within East Devon what we can do to provide and build new council housing. We do have some land available within the district, and I think it's an ideal opportunity. I realise all the difficulties that confront us on that, but I really think as a district, it is something we really need to try and ensure that we provide going into the future, because if you just look at the cost of new homes, I really do feel sorry for younger people trying to find any way of putting a basic need into their lives of good housing. And I think we can actually provide that if we've got a real will and a desire and the capability to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I think this discussion we've had many times, I think, on this review board, and we all in agreement that obviously that's something that we aim to do, is somehow, through whatever means, to build houses for the community, not, as you say, affordable homes. It's council houses or whatever, which is what is our aim. But obviously that's an ongoing discussion with the company, building company or whatever that EDC have. And obviously, John and I and Megan talk about this quite regularly. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think everyone else would as well, and it's something we will push onwards with as we move forward. Thank you. Anyone else want to comment on that or no? We'll move on if not. Has Councillor Taylor got her hand up?
Yes, I am a member of the board, but it's a question really regarding the energy performance certificates. Now, do we as a council have a duty bound to provide these certificates? Because I've got a query at the moment, and I said I've endeavoured to find out where we stand. They're a tenant, and they think that the council's duty bound to provide this energy performance certificate. Perhaps John could give me some guidance on that. Thank you.
Okay, John.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we do energy assessments of our stock. We're working through the stock, and we'll come on to talk about the stock condition survey later in the agenda. We haven't got full coverage of all the stock, I don't believe, at the moment, but we're getting there. I'm quite happy if Councillor Taylor's got specific inquiry from a particular tenant to, if perhaps you email me the details, and we'll ensure if we got a certificate for that particular property, we're quite happy to share that with our tenants. We normally do, I believe, on new lettings. We share quite a bit of data on the stock with our tenants, EPC being one of those. But happy to take that offline and address that particular tenant's concern if appropriate, Chair.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Councillor Hall, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Really echoing what Councillor Rowland said about housing stock and looking where our options. I'm looking for a little bit of guidance here for you, Chair. Has there recently, not to my knowledge anyway, been a proposal from the board to look at and scope the potential of actually having what we would say no money council housing stock in the East Devon area? Does there need to be a proposal from the board that we are investigating available options, or is this an area that needs to be scoped by the officers first and foremost? Because I'll be more than happy as a member of the board to propose that we do look at options and therefore look at the potential of building housing stock in the East Devon area. I would look for a little bit of guidance in this, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking to John for a bit of guidance on this as well. So,
yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't think you need to provide that guidance, particularly if you adopt the refreshed housing strategy, because it's in there. We've also built in that ambition to the service plan that you'll remember agreeing in January. Providing more social housing has been part of the debate that we're having on the council plan, and translating the statement of intent into council plan, and that's coming through loud and clear, the ambitions of the council. So I personally don't believe you need to specifically have any form of motion of such, because that is part of our work that we're doing. And as you know, what we've brought to the board in the past is a number of acquisition decisions where we've bought properties, but increasingly I'm hoping that we'll bring to the board development opportunities as well, as we hopefully move into new build. And I know that's something that's on Jo's agenda. She's very keen to identify opportunities for new build, as well as suitable acquisitions. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, John. Obviously, we've seen the moved on into the committee members. So, anybody else on the committee want to have a say? If not, we will move on. No other hands are up. There is a recommendation, I believe, on this one. John?
There is, Chair. The recommendation is that the draft housing strategy is approved for the purposes of final drafting after the board have provided a steer on the consultation questions set out in this report.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun here. I lost the script.
So do you want me to run a vote, Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay, so board members, when I call out your name, can you please say whether you're for or against, or you're abstaining? So I'll start with you, Chair.
Yeah, for.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hall?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
For.
Thank you. Cindy Collier?
For.
Thank you, Cindy. And Kat Summers, please.
For.
Thank you, Kat. So, Chair, that's carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9, update of housing policies, and I believe that's Joe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is, as you know, board, every couple of years we have to review all of our policies and procedures, just to ensure that they are in line with current legislation and current best practice. So this is just to inform you that these policies, there are links within the document if you want to actually read the policies, but these are the policies that we have updated within the last couple of months. So now all of the housing policies are bang up to date.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Okay, I'll put it out to non-members. Anybody want to make a comment? Please raise your hand. No one? Okay, and I'll take it in-house to the committee members. Anybody? No? Okay, and as it's just a report for information only, I take it as noted and we move on.
That's right, it's just to be noted, Chair.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And we now move on to item 10, Integrated Asset Management Contract Void Report, and I believe it's Graham. Are you there, Graham?
I am, yeah, sorry, just unmuting myself. Yeah, I'll keep this as brief as I can. Most of the detail is in the report, but alongside the annual review we carried out for the integrated asset management contract that's delivered by Ian Williams, we also carried out a detailed void review. This highlighted two specific areas that need to be addressed operationally to improve the delivery of voids. The first related to void types. From the beginning of the contract, we had 3 void types, a V1, with a target delivery of 10 days, a V2 with a target delivery of 28 days, and a V3 which covered voids requiring major work, the timescale of which was set by agreement between both parties. Analysis of all the voids delivered during the first year found that they were being delivered somewhere between the V1 and the V2 timescale, and it was therefore decided to recategorize the voids and have just two types. So we agreed that we would go for a V1, which could be delivered in a maximum of 14 days, and that would encompass two major component upgrades, for example, a new kitchen or electrical rewire with a capped monetary value of £10,000, and then a V2, which will encompass any voids which fall outside of the category of V1, so really major voids requiring a lot of work. Secondly, we reviewed the price per void, scope of works and component schedule in relation to what is included and what is deemed excluded. The excluded works incur additional cost. We looked at trends, identified works that regularly appear as exclusions, and took the opportunity to redefine the component list of the price per void inclusions. Ian Williams duly repriced this element to include works that regularly appeared as exclusions. This resulted in an increase in cost of the price per void of £456.56, including a CPI uplift. Whilst this is an increase in cost, the expectation is this will result in savings as the number of exclusions will be significantly reduced. And that's basically it. So that's the sort of very brief summary.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Okay, are there any non-members who wish to speak? Please raise your blue hand. I see no hands raised, so I'll put it up back to the committee. Any members of the committee who wish to speak, please raise your blue hand. And again, I don't see any hands. So recommendation is, someone can read the recommendation? Anybody?
You there, Giles?
No, not there.
Right. Oh, shall I read it?
Please.
The recommendation is that the Housing Review Board accept the operational changes to the void process, component list and price per void, cost delivered under the Integrated Asset Management Contract.
Okay, Chair, let's run the vote. I'll do the same again by roll call, if that's okay.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so starting with you then, Chair.
Yeah, 4.
4, thank you. Councillor Chamberlain? Are you with me, Councillor Chamberlain? Are you for, against or abstaining? We'll come back to Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Hall?
4, Debbie, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Yes, 4.
Thank you. Cindy Collier, please.
4.
Thank you, Cindy. And Kat Summers, please.
4.
Thank you. I'll just come back to Sarah Chamberlain. Are you able to unmute and vote, please, Sarah? Okay, we might have some technical difficulties with Councillor Chamberlain, but Chair, you're carried anyway with 5 votes.
Okay,
thank you
very much. Thank you. Moving on to item 11, Ian Williams complaints. That's Graham, I believe. Is he there?
Tony, it's Sophie who's going to present that. Sophie Davies.
Okay, sorry, Sophie.
Sorry, thank you.
Right.
Hello, thank you, Councillor McCullum. Okay, so what I've done is I have blended the two together, so our Ian Williams report and our property and asset complaints report, because this is a very in-depth subject, and it's only something we're just starting to talk about now as we've collated a lot more reports on it. So our overall complaints report sits in line with our Ian Williams report, which is an agenda item that does sit further down. I'll discuss this now as the two sit hand in hand. Figures and more in-depth information are contained within the attached appendix items. So within property and asset, we're committed to providing a high quality repair, maintenance and void service. We welcome both positive and negative feedback and view each as an opportunity to learn and improve our quality of service, provided by both East Devon District Council and by our contractors. The feedback that we receive is imperative for me to understand how we can learn, grow, and ensure that we are identifying any trends that may occur whilst keeping a continued high level of service for our tenants. Within property and asset, we recognise that being a reactive service working on and within people's homes, there will always be occasions where residents are unhappy about aspects of our service and the service that we provide. The property and asset complaint policy and report applies to all of my team, all staff members, contractors and subcontractors employed by or acting on behalf of East Devon District Council, carrying out work or instructing work to our properties. Over the last year, the way in which we now collate, record and distribute our data on complaints across the whole service has changed. We're working differently and more closely with our contractors, discussing each complaint in detail at all of our meetings. Every resident's opinion is really important to us and vital for us to learn and grow as a service. We learn from complaints and use these to improve our services across the team, both again within East Devon District Council and our contractors. I record all complaints and compliments and comments made. This is done in a varied manner of ways. So we have different reports that are produced on a monthly, weekly and yearly basis. With this information, we discuss each complaint and compliment in detail with the relevant teams in property and asset on a monthly basis and with our contractors. Not only do we discuss these with our teams, we ensure that we report and action lessons learned in the following contractual meetings. So weekly discussions between both management teams and the council and contractors. Operational groups with Ian Williams were monthly. Core group, senior meetings and our monthly meetings that are held with Liberty Gas. By doing this, this highlights any trends that may be occurring. Most importantly, from each piece of feedback we receive, we listen to people's views and experiences of our service and act accordingly. We learn from every complaint made and use these to improve our services and ways of working. We ensure that there are always simple and effective ways for people to make a complaint, as some tenants don't like to do it over the phone, they don't like to do it by letter, so we make sure we have so many different channels that they're able to communicate with us. We manage and discuss complaints fairly and consistently. All residents who report a complaint receive a full response within the agreed timescales. In line with our housing white paper, we aim to acknowledge, respond and action all complaints, questions, comments and queries in the appropriate timescales. So within property and asset, my team and our wider team acknowledge complaints within 5 working days, acknowledge councillor queries in 5 working days, investigate, comment and action complaints and queries with a full response, inclusive of the closure date within 10 to 15 days. Whilst we highlight these timeframes, this is not always possible. We aim to keep the resident fully updated throughout this process if we're unable to hit the above timescales. Most complaints require further work or plans or programmes. We aim to provide these within the context of our action plans to the councillors and to our tenants. If further works are required to ensure that the works are completed to a high standard, I post-inspect all of the works carried out, subject to the complaint, to ensure this matches our residents' requirements and all parties are satisfied. Our overall complaint report sits in line with the Ian Williams report, which is an agenda item. So the Ian Williams report, this is from July 2019 to December 2020. Moving forward, this is being created now on a quarterly and an annual basis. It should be noted that the format and overall presentation of the report is based over a year and a half of the contract. Whilst customer feedback provides a valuable insight on how the Ian Williams are and how they're performing, complaints and compliment figures do not reflect the full picture. This report should therefore be understood within the context of the number of customers interacting with our repair service, averaging all repairs to 4,200 plus properties and averaging to reactive repairs with Ian Williams to 1,100 per month. Therefore, building on the key developments and lessons learned within 2019 and 2020, priority areas of the focus of 2021 will include increasing the number of complaints recorded. I will promote the procedure for reporting complaints via our social media platforms and website to ensure that tenants are having opportunity to relay positive feedback as well as negative. So they get to be able to have a chat with us about what has gone well, not always what's gone wrong. Addressing current and upcoming issues using complaints as direct customer feedback to make immediate service improvements. So this is working alongside Ian Williams CLO, the business manager and their contract manager. Reviewing the way that property and asset highlight and consider learning from complaints to ensure that each complaint inquiry is fully considered and used to positively grow our service and improve our customer relationships. So from each report that we work on monthly, quarterly and yearly, we have a lessons learned section. So with every single complaint, we have a lessons learned. So what are we doing to change? How are we changing it moving forward? And how is this getting implemented within our service? So improving the way that our complaints are dealt with requires a whole one team approach, with property and asset alongside Ian Williams, prioritising complaints and making improvements based on the feedback from customers. Therefore, it is the responsibility of myself to make sure responding to complaints and learning from customer feedback is treated as a priority, whilst continuing to highlight complaints and issues daily, weekly and monthly. A number of reactive repair service improvements have been made over the last year based on feedback from our customers. Key themes of the service improvements have included the training of the internal staff to fully understand the requirements of the contract and the revision of the communication materials from our first point of contact when they're actually scheduling and booking the repair that comes via my team, so our repair advisors, and then that will go right through to the Ian Williams scheduling hub. Further work will be undertaken in 2021 to continue to improve and approach dealing with complaints. So over the last year, the examples of the most common complaints received against Ian Williams are the following. Number one, the lack of communication. We have now introduced the repair advisors managing issues with the communication with the hub at Ian Williams on a bi-weekly basis. Then any further issues are escalated to myself. I will then hold a senior monthly meeting with their Birmingham hub business manager to ensure that these are not carried over. Our surveyors have now got a dedicated duty surveyor role to pick up any inquiries immediately from site with our operatives, as well as technical issues that have arisen from the repair advisors. Number two, it's repair timescales. Ian Williams have increased their operative numbers on both the reactive side and the void side. This helps create slots for repairs to be scheduled in a timely manner and make it a lot more easier for our tenants. This has resulted in the repair advisors being able to book more appointments at the first point of contact with the tenant as well, which is the whole nature and point of the contract. Number three, Ian Williams missed appointments and no attendance. This one is still very much being worked on. It has been escalated to the business manager at Ian Williams. This has reduced significantly, but still too high for my liking. We have now weekly calls with the contract manager at Ian Williams to ensure appointments are kept and overdue appointments are attended to and discussed. And then finally, operatives attitude. So the contract manager holds bi-weekly Toolbox Talks with the reactive teams to ensure that treating our tenants with respect is a priority. Any complaints of this nature is discussed individually with the operative in question and investigated. Both myself and other members of my team attend these talks to discuss the importance of all issues raised above. On the reports in the appendix, you will notice our next steps in how we're progressing and using our data moving forward. In regards to our surveys and customer satisfaction, we have changed the way that we're now managing these. After each reactive repair, Ian Williams offer a PDA survey and leave a paper copy of the survey. The questions on the survey are more tailored to the service and gives tenant the perfect opportunity of what we can improve on and what we've done well or not so well. My team are also carrying out telephone surveys at random on jobs that have been completed the month before and create a trend report that is presented to our contractor. We are also now post-inspecting voids and reactive works at a senior level. So both myself and our contract manager working on these, we identify reactive repairs and voids that have happened the month before, and we will phone the residents and the tenants just to understand if they're happy with the works that have been done or happy with the quality of void that they've been given. We understand that this is an area that we need to keep working hard on, as this is not in a position that I would like to see. This will ensure that tenants are always given the opportunity to be heard. Okay, so that's our report on complaints and satisfaction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll go to the outside members first, and I believe Steve. Sorry, I thought John Golding had his hand up. Yes, he has. Sorry, John.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought I'd add to Sophie's report. I think we're starting to see the benefits of the appointment that we made a while ago, where Sophie's role is about business and customer improvement, and you can see from the report that we are taking this feedback really seriously, and it picks up on Councillor Gazzard's point earlier about we need to be not just monitoring this stuff better, but also taking the learning from complaints, so we avoid these mishaps in future, so tenants get a much better service. And hopefully what Sophie's conveyed to the board is that we're proactively managing complaints with the objective of reducing them and ultimately achieving a much better customer service by working really closely with not just our contractors but other aspects of service delivery through the housing management service. So that investment that you've made, you decided as a board to create this post some probably 2 years, 18 months ago. We're now starting to see pay off, and hopefully the intention is, if the board wish, that we bring these reports to you regularly so you can again proactively monitor and manage the complaint process with us. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, John. Councillor Gazzard. Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sophie, for an excellent report. And as John says, it does cover a lot of my areas that I've raised many times before. And, you know, happy customers make happy tenants, and you know, as always, we'll always get customers paying their rent on time. But I'm pleased that further reports, as John has indicated, will be coming to the board so that we can keep a watching brief on it. But excellent report. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Steve. Okay, put it to members of the committee. Anyone wants to speak? Put hands, please. Councillor Hall. Liam.
Thank you, Chair. Really, first and foremost, Sophie, thank you ever so much for the presentation there. You and your team have been absolutely fantastic during an incredibly challenging time. And we got to remember also that our customers have been going through the same difficulties, challenges and anxiety as well. And having any person come into your home over the last 12 months must have been challenging for itself. But I do agree with John that this is starting to bear fruits with going with this contractor. And when we're actually collating the data, I actually look at this as being a part of the journey of the continuous improvement. I really endorse the openness that we actually adopted ever since I've been involved with the HRB. And we are dealing primarily with reactive works. And that in itself, as any customer will know, that makes them anxious. But one thing, what I've seen continuously since I've been involved with the HRB is that we listen, we're open, and we try to improve. Question for you, Chair, to Sophie. I was very interested to see about the Toolbox Talks. I actually use that practice in my day job, and I feel it's really good and engaging, especially when we sometimes need to ensure those people who are carrying out the work on behalf of our customers are able to look from the lens of the customer themselves. Does the operatives, if that's the appropriate word, when they've had their Toolbox Talks, are they actually signing that they understand and adhere to the Toolbox Talks? Because again, I've found that a very, very useful mechanism in the workplace, because if we have to revisit that again, I will remind them about their Toolbox Talk and that you actually signed that you understood and adhere to that. And finally, Chair, like I said, it's been an incredibly challenging time for everybody, and I just feel the people here on the coalface, on the front line, have done a fantastic job. And thank you ever so much for your continued effort on everyone's behalf. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Sophie, do you want to come back?
Of course. Thank you, Councillor Hall. So yes, we hold our bi-weekly operative meetings and Toolbox Talks, which is held on site at Woodbury. This includes all of our operatives from the void and the reactive teams. So on their attendance, they sign to say that they have attended this and they understand what we're going to be discussing. I do like your point in saying that they are signed to say they fully understand what we're talking about and whether to raise any further concerns. But yeah, they do sign to say they do understand it, and they know how to contact myself should they have any further questions, or to go via their contract manager to help manage that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? No blue hands going up. And I guess this is for noting only, as it's a report, no recommendations. So we move on to the next one, which is item 12, ground maintenance additional costs. And I believe that is Nick.
Chair, I'll take this if I may.
You take it, okay.
So as you say, this report is from our street scenes operations manager, Nick Christo, and it tells about the council's efficiency savings in terms of we've removed our seasonal budget as part of the street scene summer season staffing. That's to try and save some council resources, but it has impacted on our ability to maintain grassed areas and gardens. As you can see from the report, the housing sites represent something like 25% of street scenes grounds work. So what Street Scene have done is proposed an alternative approach for the housing grounds maintenance work that they undertake for us, because we've presumed, working with Nick and his team, we've presumed that tenants don't want to see a deterioration in the maintenance of our significant areas of landscaped facilities across the stock that we have, or indeed the individual garden maintenance programme. So to address this, what Street Scene have requested is that if we, through housing, the grounds maintenance budget in housing that we have, if we pay for 2 seasonal staff at a cost of something like £30,000, we can enjoy the level of service that we've previously enjoyed in housing. And obviously this time of year the grass is growing quickly, hedges and such like that Street Scene maintain for us, I would like to see maintained in a good condition. The report does also highlight the need for some further review and work in terms of the Street Scene contract that we have. It's some years old now, and what we're proposing is that during the course of the year we review that contract, that service level agreement that we have, and we have really good data in terms of where our land is and how much we've got. We plotted that some years ago in great detail, so that should make that process easy. But in the meantime, what I'm recommending is that we increase our grounds maintenance budget to maintain the standards across our estate, our housing landlord estate, and then review the service level agreement over the course of the next year. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, John. Okay, out to non-members first. Anybody want to comment, ask a question? No blue hands I can see. In-house now to the committee members. Anybody? Hands, please. Okay. Oh, Councillor Hall, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to endorse what John says. If we are able to go down this route, we are actually setting the standards, and it makes it more beneficial for the customers again with what we're doing. And if we are setting standards by good upkeep, then I absolutely endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Anybody else? No. Okay, so we put it to the recommendation.
Chair, I'll just go through the recommendation. It's a bit
Yeah,
convoluted, but basically the report acknowledges that Street Scene have undertaken a larger review of the housing contract, and that the Street Scene requests that Housing Review Board recommend to Cabinet and then on to Council for resolution the interim funding of 2 grounds maintenance seasonal staff at a cost of circa £30,000 to help Street Scenes through the coming season. So it's additional funding, so it has to be approved by Cabinet, by Cabinet and then Council.
Thank you. Okay, if everyone's happy with that, we will put it to the vote.
Chair, can I ask a question, please?
Certainly.
Just for a point of clarification, where would the actual funding come through from? Would that be HRA account?
Yeah, John.
Yes, Chair, that's exactly right.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we can take it to the vote.
Okay, I'll do the vote here, Chair. So when I read out your names, you could just say whether you're for or against. So Councillor McCullum.
For.
Councillor Chamberlain.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Hall. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Taylor.
For.
Cindy Collier.
For.
And Kat Summers.
For.
Okay, so for the benefit of those watching online, that was 6-4, so it's carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item 13, which is the NRA and Housing Capital Finance Report. This is Rob, I believe.
Thank you very much, Chair. Again, I won't spend too long on the numbers. Essentially, the year-end outturn is currently very much in draft format because I'm kind of midway through the year-end process at the moment. So we're still looking at accruals and reserves for what basically is to come from effectively last year, and what we're going to reserve for underspends, etc., from COVID for catch-up costs. Currently, it's looking at 3.2 million of surplus, which is obviously well in excess of what we budgeted for. But obviously with reserves, etc., and what kind of comes out of this meeting, potentially with regards to the stock condition survey, etc., that probably will change quite significantly. But we're in a good position due to all the underspends. The bit I'll spend a little bit more time on, obviously, if anyone's got questions on the outturn, do let me know. The more kind of interesting point for the moment is probably the right to buy changes that are coming in. So MHCLG have basically introduced the new regulations after their consultation. It's very good news for us in most aspects. The main points to consider are the time frame of spending for right to buy receipts has increased to 5 years from 3, so it's an additional 2 years we've got to spend our receipts, which is obviously a good thing. Essentially, we've got 2 more years to be where we should be at the end. We should have been at the end of this financial year, so we've got more time to actually do things and put in place development plans, etc. It also means that the £915,000 that we were due to spend at the end of this year giving back receipts, we don't actually have to give back based on the current returns. It was a bit it's a bit unclear in terms of their actual what they've said, because it's supposed to start next financial year, but what in doing the returns, etc., it basically means that they've put the numbers back already for this financial year's return. So essentially, the £915,000 does not need to be repaid, which is excellent news for us. The funding cap on receipts, again, is another bit of good news. That moves from to 40% from 30%, which means we now only have to fund 60% as opposed to 70% from either the HRA or additional borrowing. So again, good news for us. We can actually use more right to buy receipts for our developments or our acquisitions, which is again good news. The next one is probably less for anybody else other than me, because the reporting time frame now goes to annually from quarterly, so less work for me. Happy days. Again, moving on. This is a sort of slight, well, not problem, but the thing where we have to change which everyone's been talking about already, in terms of development versus acquisition. But the actual right to buy rules now mean that we have to, it's kind of forcing us to do more development. From the 2022-23 financial year, there will be a cap on the supply, the amount that you can spend on acquisitions versus development. So it's going to be 50% of supply to be acquisitions from 22-23. That then reduced the next financial year to 40%. And then from 24-25 onwards, it'll be 30%. So essentially 70% of your right to buy receipts have to be spent on development from 24-25 onwards. So that obviously means we need to think more about development, less about acquisitions. And obviously with current acquisitions being our main right to buy replacement strategy, that obviously needs to shift, but obviously that's been talked about already. They're the main points. Again, if anyone's got any questions on either any of those or the actual outturn, do let me know. Bit of a whistle stop tour.
Okay, thank you, Rob. And I see Councillor Rowland got his hands up. Jack.
Thanks, Chair. That's good news to hear about the right to buy, because it's something that a number of us have been very concerned about, obviously, about the rules that did apply. So the extension in time is welcome news. You mentioned about the £915,000 that doesn't have to be repaid this year. That is definite, is it? It's not just our interpretation. That is we can say that as a definite.
Essentially, yeah. In terms of what they were saying in terms of all the rules is that they start from the next financial year. But essentially, we've filled in the forms and everything, and basically gone into the MHCLG website, put in all our details of how our spend patterns are currently, and what they've essentially done is basically put the requirement for the end of this financial year. They've changed that to the previous financial year, and they'll keep that rolling. So essentially, it means that we are well in ahead of where we actually need to be because they've put it back. So yeah, our actual requirement. Oh God, sorry.
You heard you. That's what it is. Okay.
Time for a walk.
That's
yes. Sorry. Yeah. So basically it means that we should be absolutely fine. That we've paid over our money already in terms of the amounts that we have to pay for the quarterly basis in terms of the debt replenishment stuff. So yeah, the actual amounts, the 915 for the right to buy replacement, actually wasn't required at all. So we are definite we don't have to pay that.
So can I just come back, Chair, as well? I mean, that's really good news, especially in view of what I was saying earlier about building new council housing. So that does tie in neatly with what we're trying to achieve, doesn't it? So great news, good to hear.
Yeah, good news for a change. Thank you, Jack. Councillor Armstrong, Megan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Thank you for that, Rob. As you probably know, I was aware of all this, and my ongoing communication with the MPs is still ongoing. I've written to them recently to say that yes, we're happy with what they've done. It's a lot better than it was, but there are still some things that are not quite how we would like them. So I've written to them and not had any formal replies back yet. And I would actually still like to have a meeting with them. So I think there are people on this board who might well be interested in being at that meeting as and when it happens. But yeah, it's better than it was, a lot better than it was. So, but having said that, this results from a survey that was done, I understand, back in 2018, a consultation document, and it's only as the results of that have only just come back. So it's taken quite, I think it was 2018. Am I right on that, Joe?
Yeah, you are, yeah.
So it's taken quite a long time for the government to get back in touch with us about this. It could have been done a lot quicker. But, you know, we've got to be grateful for at least them getting back to us and making things a little bit better. So just to confirm with members of the board that we're still on it. We're still looking to improve as much as we possibly can. It's not ideal, this right to buy, we really just want to get rid of it altogether. That's my personal view, and I think a view of some other members as well. But it's a long journey, but we'll still keep battling away there. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Megan. John.
Thank you, Chair. I think portfolio holder and chair can take some credit because you've kept government under pressure on this. It does seem an absolute nonsense that with all the pressure that we have on housing people and some of the comments that we've had today, that we're selling a precious stock at huge discounts, and the cost of replacing them is very, very expensive, as you can see from the reports and some of the acquisitions that you approve on a regular basis. We have to put a significant amount of money into replacing stock. But credit to you for keeping government under pressure. As Councillor Armstrong says, it's not perfect, these releases, because we'll still be under pressure to spend in that 5-year period, but it does push us more towards the building rather than the acquisition element of the development process. So we'll be focusing on that in the forthcoming few years. And I think what also this report tells you is that the HRA is in a healthy position. We have necessarily had to reduce some of our activity over the pandemic, some of the planned works that we would normally do, which has resulted in some savings. But because our rent collection figures are so good, and I can see, I think Andy Loosemore, the manager of our rental teams, on the call, but because that's so good, we can do things and commit expenditure on things like the grounds maintenance we just talked about to maintain standards, like our stock condition survey work. When we come to talk about that, we are in a healthy position, and thanks to the team for keeping us in that place, because, as I say, the accountancy process is really good. We keep a very close eye on what we're spending, and our income figures are good through excellent rent collection, thanks to our tenants. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, John. Anybody else from outside want to speak? No blue hands. Anybody from the committee wish to speak? Please raise your blue hand. And we have Councillor Hall. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to echo John's word. It's a great team effort, and Megan and Tony, well done. Going forward, Megan, if there's anything I can support with, obviously I will, as much as I can. But the planets are starting to really align, and so therefore that gives increased flexibility going forward. And it's only come from a really good, strong effort. Well done all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Ian.
Anybody else? Right, no blue hands, and we have a recommendation, I believe, for this one. Who's anyone going to read it? Charles, anybody? No?
Yep, Chair, I'll read it out. So just to confirm we're on. Sorry, we're all a bit in and out this morning, Chair. I do apologise. So just to confirm, we're on agenda item 13. Recommendation is that the Housing Revenue Account and Housing Capital Finance Report is approved and recommended to Cabinet.
Thank you.
So I'll go straight to vote then, Chair. So when I call out your name, if you could just say if you are for or against or you're abstaining. I'll start with you, Chair. Councillor McCullum.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
For.
Thank you. Cindy Collier.
For.
Thank you, Cindy. And Kat Summers, please. Thank you, Kat. So that's carried unanimously, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll move on to item 14, complaints handling. And again, I believe that is Sophie again. Sophie, are you here? Sophie?
Tony, I think her report covered everything previously, because she sort of combined the two together, because
Okay.
she's actually on leave this week, so she just sort of dialed in to deliver a report and disappear again.
That is fine. We will jump on to item 15, which is Housemark Annual Performance Report, and that is John, I believe.
Thanks, Chair. The report's just for information. As the report says, we belong to a benchmarking club that Housemark run for us, really useful so that we can compare ourselves against our peers, and we get an annual report. I've asked the Jo and her management team to look closely at this, and happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Okay. Anybody from outside the committee wish to speak? Please raise your blue hand. No blue hands. I will then bring it in-house to committee. Anybody want to speak? Please raise your blue hand. And again, no blue hands, so we'll move on. I believe there's a recommendation to be read on this one.
Chair, it's just...
So the reason for the recommendation is to monitor performance and gauge our performance against peers in the sector, with the ultimate aim of learning and improving our performance for our tenants. So presumably that's to note and then pass up to Cabinet.
Okay, so we just note it and move on, or do we vote? Advice, anybody?
If you're noting, Chair, you can move on to the next item.
Okay, note it and move on, please, to where are we now?
16.
Number 16, which is COVID-19 performance, and that is Jo, I believe.
Again, this is for information only, really, Chair.
Okay.
This is to show the board what we monitor on a fortnightly basis. This started at the beginning of COVID as just a way of us, almost like a dashboard for us to be able to keep an eye on how performance was throughout the massive changes. So again, this is just for information for people to see what we're monitoring on a fortnightly basis.
Okay, thank you. Surely noted. So we will now move on again to item number, where am I? 17, annual report of the HRB. And that is, sorry, John, is that you?
Yeah, Chair, this is something that Alethea kindly produces for the board every year to allow you to report back really to Cabinet and Council on the work that you've been undertaking. You can see from the report a vast range of work has been undertaken by the board over the course of the year, everything from budget setting, service plan, adoption, strategy, adoption, policies, looking at complaints, looking at climate change, a whole range of activities. And with that forward from yourself, Chair, we can report that to, say, Cabinet and Council as the work of the board during the course of 2021.
Thank you, John. Yes, very challenging times, which obviously we are getting through it, thank God. Okay, again, surely noted. And move on again to item 15. No, I'm going backwards.
Item 18, Chair.
Sorry, that. Item 18, renewal of Advantage Southwest subscription. Renewal of, and that is Graham, I believe.
Yes, thank you very much. Membership of the Advantage Southwest organisation continues to be very beneficial for us as an organisation, and with our membership we have opportunity to sharing of information, good practice, participating in working groups, particularly on fire safety, the impending Building Safety Act. We were heavily involved in the procurement of the asbestos surveying frameworks and the fire risk assessment frameworks. Our compliance manager, Michelle Davidson, sat on those working groups and had great involvement producing the documentation and offering her expertise, so that was good. We've got access to procurement knowledge and technology. We achieve value for money through the use of their frameworks. All their products are reviewed and tested. And one of the great things is, prior to COVID particularly, the products are offered for inspection by our tenants, and members of our repairs service review group attended product viewings and passed their comments and rated them. They're also heavily involved in system and new build frameworks, which in light of earlier discussion, we may be able to take advantage of for new build housing. They offer legal support and workshops, which again, we can tap into, which is good. There's opportunities for resident involvement. The fact there are many services provided by Advantage South West, and these can be used by housing as a whole, rather than limited to property and assets. So our other colleagues in the housing services in Sue Hughes and Andrew Mitchell's team can take advantage of those, particularly the legal advice that's offered and the legal workshops that are provided. I think we get great value for money from this subscription, and there's a very good working relationship with the members across all the South West and other local authorities and housing organisations. We continue to tap into it and benefit from that. And that's it, really.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. So I'll put it to outside. And Councillor Gizzard, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it seems to be a great benefit to us as District Council to belong to this. But could you just refresh me, what is the cost of our subscription, please?
It's around £13,000–14,000 a year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from outside the committee wish to speak? No blue hands. Inside the committee, oh, sorry, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Being part of Advantage South West, 12,283.70, I believe, plus VAT. Really, I look at this and I always see the value out of these areas in partnership working, best practice sharing, and again, on our journey of continuous improvement. I absolutely endorse this, and I would recommend through you, Chair, that we actually adopt this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And anybody else? We have Councillor Chamberlain. Sarah.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Possibly declare at this point that actually I am involved with Advantage South West through my paid job through Exeter City Council. So I've actually used this, or do continue to use their service in my current employment, but very useful in joining up all the different areas of councils and that with their knowledge of using different contractors and things. And I believe it's a great benefit, so I would support continuous use of them.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Anybody else?
Chair, can I just ask our financial advisor that this subscription is actually already budgeted in this year's?
Yep, it's within this year's budget.
It is. Thank you. So it's not new. It's not new money required.
No,
okay.
It's just the renewal.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have a recommendation to continue paying the subscription.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, sorry, got that one. Okay, carry on. You put it to the vote?
Sorry, Chair, I've got
sorry.
my hand up.
Oh, sorry, I missed you.
Okay, one of the questions has already been taken care of. It's already been budgeted for, and it was very interesting listening to Councillor Chamberlain's view, because obviously looking at the other end of the telescope, looking at the advantages here. So thank you for that, Councillor Chamberlain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, forward to the vote then, please.
Okay, Chair, so I'll take from that Councillor Hall has proposed it and Councillor Chamberlain seconding.
Correct.
Thank you. So members, when I call out your name, if you could please say whether you are for or against or abstaining from the recommendation, which is to continue paying the annual subscription to maintain membership to Advantage South West. I'll start with you, Councillor McCullum.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
For.
Thank you. Cindy Collier, please.
4.
Thank you, Cindy. And Kat Summers, please.
4.
Thank you, Kat. So, Chair, that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item 19, stock condition survey, and over to Joe.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is obviously quite a meaty topic. There's quite a long report. Hopefully you've had the chance to review it. I will try and keep my submission as brief as I can, whilst also trying to do justice to the complexity of it. But I wanted to leave a nice amount of space because I am assuming that there may well be a fair few questions that come from it. Just to also outline that there is a Part A report and there is also a Part B report. The Part B report includes the commercially sensitive financial information that backs this Part A report up. The reason they're not put together is that at the moment we don't have agreement that we are going to actually move forward with Curry and Brown, so I didn't want that commercially sensitive information out there in the public forum in case we have to go to full open tender process. So apologies for the 2 stages, but it just seems the safer bet until we've got full approval for us to move forward. Obviously, we as a local authority are incredibly lucky to have 4,200 units of housing stock. Like an awful lot of local authorities, that housing stock is now becoming slightly more aged than perhaps we would like. There is a serious sort of financial implication to maintaining it to the standards that we would want. So the best way for us to actually gauge what future spend may be and how we can actually manage our repairs programs, etc., is to complete a full stock condition survey. Now, my understanding is that what this report is proposing is the first time in EDDC history that there has been a 100% stock condition survey completed. So what that means is that we will be scrutinising every building that falls within the HRA funding pot. So that's not just houses, that also includes things like sewage plants, we have some shops around the place, we have a borehole, we have flats, we have community centres. So everything within that portfolio will be scrutinised and we will understand exactly what its condition is, what the financial implications might be for us to maintain it in the future. So obviously the stock condition survey is a major piece of work. It also comes with a fairly major price tag, which will be discussed in the next part of the meeting. But the benefits to come out of it just should not be underestimated. I mean, it's going to be an absolute game changer for us within housing. At the moment, we've got lots of amazing things going on, but we're almost doing some of it with one hand tied behind our back. So we have this amazing contract with the Ian Williams company, which offers us the potential to save huge amounts of money. But at the moment, we're not able to effectively use that purely because we don't hold the right sort of stock information. So what we're hoping to come out, or what we know will come out of this stock condition survey, is an evidence-based 30-year active asset management strategy. We will also be being able to compile a 50-year estate regeneration plan. There is an understanding that it usually happens when you do stock condition surveys, is that there will be a proportion of the housing stock that is either not fit for purpose, cannot be economically made fit for purpose, or has just reached the end of its natural life. So normally the result of a stock condition survey is that you would do some sort of estate regeneration. That also fits really well in with the members' aspirations on moving towards with the carbon neutrality of our housing stock. So those two things fit really well together. We will also be able to produce really accurate planned and cyclical works programmes. At the moment, we're forced to rely on a slightly more expensive option, which is basically managing all our repairs programmes through a responsive repairs programme. That's not the cheapest way to do it. We've got this amazing contract. We need to be able to flex the economies of scale that we can get with that. We should see significant improvements in the quality and future-proofing of our housing stock. We should be able to offer significant benefits to our tenants. There will be an awful lot of tenant participation as this process goes forward. We will be able to fully understand the financial implications of managing our housing stock and also the drive towards the carbon neutral. At the moment, we don't really have much of a steer on what that's likely to cost us. So we need to understand that. Also, if we don't do the stock condition survey, we are increasingly going to find it really difficult to meet our obligations as a social landlord. And also with the very new Building Safety Act that's just about to go live, that is almost entirely data-based in order for us to supply the information that the regulatory board are going to require. So the quickest way that we can do that is to do this one-hit stock condition survey. That will give us all of the information that we need in order to be able to comply with this new inspection regime that will come out of the Building Safety Act. The other thing, and one of the most important things for me, is that actually it will allow us to have a really full and meaningful conversation with our tenants. It will enable us to move forward with building really sustainable communities for the future. It's a really laudable aspiration to move to zero carbon, but also that's going to be very expensive and it's going to need a lot of goodwill from our tenants. So we need to make sure that we manage that effectively. Obviously, there are risks with all of it. I genuinely believe that actually the biggest risk for us with regards to the stock condition survey is that we don't do it. At the moment, we are struggling to effectively manage our work programs, our maintenance programs. We're seeing increasing numbers of complaints as a result. So, we really need to do the stock condition survey. We need to do it as quickly as possible, and we need to do it in as succinct a fashion as possible. So the proposal with this document is that actually we move forward to complete the stock condition survey within a 12-month period from start on site. There are two reasons for that. One is that the Building Safety Act goes live in 2023, so we need to make sure that we have all of that data that we require. But also there is a large pot of funding that will become available for the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund. And we currently don't have the data in order to be able to put in a strong bid for that. Now, this is, I think, somewhere in the region of £12 billion worth of money that we can bid for to support our aspirations toward the zero carbon. So the quicker we can get the information into our systems, the quicker we can put in a good, strong submission for some of that funding for East Devon. And with that in mind, we have bolted on a few extras to what would normally be included in a stock condition survey. So we have requested that not only do we understand the fabric of the building and all of the components within it, we also want to know which of the green technologies would reap the biggest benefit for each of the housing stock options that we have. And we've also put in a requirement that we have a full EPC on all of our properties. As John alluded to earlier, we don't currently hold EPCs on all of our properties. We tend to do them when homes become vacant. And also we do them as part of any application for right to buy. but we don't do them routinely. So that would be a huge assistance for us. Obviously, there are huge benefits from a practical standpoint for us being able to manage our repairs processes, as I've said, but there is also really, really wide-ranging benefits that we can show across the whole of housing. It really is going to enable us to have a real sea change in the way that we move forward. Rob's already alluded to the fact that there is a change in the right to buy stuff. We have to move very clearly towards development. As an authority, we're not particularly rich in land holdings. However, we do have a lot of properties that are on very, very large plots. So it might be that we seek to release some of those through redevelopment. And then as long as there is additionality in those works, we can then use the right to buy receipts to subsidise that. So that's really good. So we have got, let's just make sure I haven't lost anything in what I wanted to let you know before we go to discussions. The process that we've been through has been to use the procurement portal. Approaches were made out to the market, requesting people to express an interest in delivering this piece of work for us. Actually, the only respondent to that was Curry & Brown. Curry & Brown are one of the leaders in the field. They're incredibly skilled. They have a huge amount of experience, which is absolutely brilliant for us. The other advantage of us using the procurement portal is that we can be absolutely assured that it is compliant with the OJU procurement rules. Also, they do the bulk of the due diligence for us. So they look into Curry & Brown, they make sure that they are a solvent and appropriate company, that they have all the relevant registrations that we require. So that helps us enormously with that. So once we'd got into discussions with Curry & Brown, there was a scoping exercise that was undertaken. And as part of that scoping exercise, we gave them a clear brief and specification for what we required. We also provided them with all of the housing and property information that we have. And as a result of that, they've come back to us with a set of method statements as to how they would deliver it, and also a pricing schedule, which is in part B of the discussions. So we as a housing team are quite confident that what they are saying they will deliver fits completely with what our spec was requesting. The next stage for us, should this be approved, would be for us to go away, do further work to ensure that any risks are mitigated. I will go into the risks in just a minute. And the other thing for us to do is to do some test surveys so that we can benchmark the surveys that we are receiving against our specification to ensure that we are indeed getting the information that we need in order to move forward in the way that we want to. So the risks that we see at the moment are that there is a huge requirement for IT support that goes along with this, purely because of the volume of data that will flow from the stock condition survey. At the moment, we believe that we have mitigated those risks by having included in the contract a requirement that we have access to their own internal, so with Curry & Brown's internal IT system, so the information will flow out of the surveys into this thing which is called the Kai Cloud. It will stay there if we need it to for up to 2 years while we actually bring the data across into our own systems. We feel that is long enough for us to be able to do that. We have sought Strata guidance on that. They feel that it is an appropriate timescale. So we feel that we've mitigated that particular risk. Obviously, there is a requirement for staffing in order to be able to implement this and do it effectively without it impacting on all the other valuable work that housing has to do. So there is a request for approval for additional budget for a project team to wrap around this piece of work. Those posts are listed within the document that you will have all read. So I think that the only other thing that I would like to just stipulate is that we see this very clearly as being a one-off piece of work. We are bringing in a specialist agency to support us to get all the information that we require. And then after that, we will bring it in-house, and there will be a 5-year rolling programme which would ensure that all of our stock condition data is kept live and up to date. So this is not something that we're intending to do ever again. This is just us getting the information that we need now in order that we can move forward. So I think that that's about it from me, Chair. If we want to open it to questions, or Graham, if you feel I've forgotten anything or missed anything out.
That's a no.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. First of all, to outside bodies, Megan.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah. I just want to thank Joe and Graham's team particularly for doing all this work, and particularly Joe, because she's got such a huge amount of experience in her previous work life. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. And to say, yeah, I 100% support this this way of dealing with it. It has to be done. We've got to bite the bullet. We've got to spend the money, but it will be worth its weight in gold, I believe, in future years. So thank you very much, Joe, for all the work you've done, and Graham, and everybody else who's been included in getting to this stage. So I do hope that the board supports this, and I'll leave it at that for now. But yeah, fully support it. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Megan. Councillor Rowland, Jack.
Thanks, Chair. I suppose I'm wearing my finance portfolio hat, so I've just had a specific question to ask Joe. I see she's laughing already before I've asked the question. If I read it correctly, there was a budget set aside for this year, current financial year, of £150,000, and you're saying that's going to be exhausted pretty quickly. Is that because when the budget planning was done, was that because the scope of what was intended at that time has moved on into this much bigger area now? So it wasn't envisaged at the budget planning time?
I think there was, John may well interject in this, but I think that there was an expectation that perhaps the stock condition survey would be delivered in a different way. However, because of time pressures now, most notable the Building Safety Act, and also this social housing decarbonisation fund, which is a ticking clock, then actually there was a realisation that we just do not have the capacity or the experience to deliver such a robust stock condition survey in-house. So we have no choice but to take it external. And obviously there is a different cost expectation around that.
Okay, I understand. Thanks, Joe. Can I just ask an additional question as well?
John.
Should I ask John, or do you want to come in now, John?
Yeah, if I could just add to Joe's answer for Councillor Rowland's question, that we were envisaging a sample stock condition survey. So you'll see from the papers that we last did that in 2011, and that was the route that we were proposing. So a sample of anything from 15 to 20% of the stock, but having that's what we kind of budgeted for, and a certain amount of internal work. Having discussed that internally, and Joe's researched this extensively, we decided, or hopefully the board will decide that 100% survey of all the stock, internal and external, is a better route to go through rather than doing a sample and then you consider these kind of archetypes and you gross it up to the whole. It builds in a certain amount of inaccuracy. So although the cost is significantly higher, the accuracy of doing it this way as being proposed now is much, much greater.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thanks, John. And I suppose, as Joe mentioned earlier as well, it assists with the any grants that we're going to apply for to help with decarbonisation. Can I just ask as well, on the additional in-house resource that's being talked about, would that be on a contract basis or would that be permanent staff?
Some of it is contract basis, just for the period of time where we would be running the stock condition survey. But there is a requirement for us to have a couple of posts that would be permanent, because obviously managing a rolling stock condition survey, we don't currently have, for instance, the surveyor capacity to do that on top of what we already do. So there is an expectation that we would want a permanent stock condition surveyor to come in, and probably some sort of administrative support for that within the IT team, because of the constant churn of data. Because stock condition surveys and stock condition data is only as good, but it's like a snapshot. We have to keep it up to date. It has to be live, otherwise it ceases to be useful. But at the moment we're not able to maximise the benefits of the Ian Williams contract, and that's really sad, because the contract is really starting to take off now. So it will, I'm sure, show us significant benefits and significant savings. So although there's a big hit at the beginning, I think it will pay for itself many times over in the coming years.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else from outside the committee?
Chair, could I just
Sorry, John.
make clear, if it's not clear from the report, hopefully it is, but these costs will be costs that fall to the housing revenue account. So, but obviously the cost of the survey and the cost of any staffing to maintain the database. So hopefully reassure Jack and the board that the costs will be costs borne by housing and not the general fund. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anybody else from outside the committee? No. Okay, I'll bring it in-house now to the committee members. Anybody want to speak? Ask a question? Okay. Oh, Councillor Chamberlain.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Joe, for your presentation on that. Stock condition, I'll start the very beginning by really positive and brilliant. This needs to be done categorically, without any shadow of doubt. This needs to be done for so many reasons, if not one top: health and safety and compliance. I'd like to ask, as a percentage of those 4,200 properties, how many stock condition surveys do you currently hold for those properties? That's question number one. Okay. I don't know whether you want to answer that first.
No, you carry on. I'll write them down.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So that's question number one. You say that the stock condition survey is likely to be completed within 12 months. Is that 100%, 4,200 properties, complete stock condition in, data in, sorted, know where you need to go with it, what issues have arisen from it?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
The expectation is that Curry and Brown will complete all surveys and we will have access to all data within that 12-month period. Okay.
Concerning points I have is that we don't hold 100% already from compliance issues, and the fact that we as a landlord, if you like, have tenants in these properties, and it's concerning to hear that we don't know the condition of our properties at the moment. So positively, this really needs doing, but from a health and safety compliance aspect, it's really concerning also. is this being tied up going forward with planned maintenance and the retrofit programme? Is there an aspiration to tie them all up to go forward, to complete the bigger picture and bring in all the money that we can get towards the retrofit programmes in now to go forward with the stock conditions that come back to do those works? I was also really I was concerned that we only had one respondent to the procurement of it, which I find a shame, because I think it's a fantastic opportunity for many companies out there to do a really good job for us. And when I heard that we only had one respondent with this great big piece of work, part of me was a little bit concerned about that. Just in that we have definitely got the right contractor for doing that, being that we didn't have many options. So the scoping for that, I'm just hoping it's going to work 100% going forward, and just that all these things are tied up going forward. The retrofit, the planned works department, the maintenance programme going forward for them. So just a few concerns I do have in there. Thank you very much for the work that you've done, and obviously, you know, telling us all about it and that. But obviously, this needs to be stayed on top of. Thank you.
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah. Okay. Right. First question. Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. First question is, you know, as John alluded to, the last stock conditions survey that was completed in 2011 used an element of what's called cloning. So as John said, you know, they might go into, you know, 5-10% of the stock, and then they would clone the information or make an assumption that every other housing stock unit of that type has the same components and is in the same state of repair, for instance. Obviously for the and a lot of local authorities and housing associations do that. You know, that is a fairly standard practice. 100% stock condition survey is quite a rare beast, because of the implications of doing so. You know, the costs are not insignificant. However, in the situation that we find ourselves in now, I don't, and obviously this is my opinion, this is for you guys to decide whether you agree with it or not, I don't believe that would give us the information that we require to give us the comfort that we are delivering on all of our landlord obligations, not least of which is the health and safety type stuff that Councillor Chamberlain was just talking about. We also have the Building Safety Act breathing down our neck, and at the moment we know that we don't have all the information that will be required as part of that new inspection regime. Also, we are not able to accurately monitor our HRA spend, because we don't really know the condition of some of our properties, because obviously our tenants are entitled to quiet enjoyment. So we can't just go blustering in and say, oh, let's just have a look at your property so that we can see what it's like, especially if they don't have any gas appliances, etc. in, and we don't have to go in annually to do our compliance checks. So, but certainly to hopefully offer you some comfort, Councillor Chamberlain, it is absolutely my expectation that following on from the stock condition survey, everything will run from that data. So every bit of spend, every bit of planning with regards to cyclical works programme, interior exterior works programme, planned works, any stock regeneration, any estate regeneration, all of that will stem from the information that we will get from this. And one of the key drivers for doing it within the year is that we are desperate to access a whole chunk of money to support the retrofit agenda. So that's why there's this big driver to get it done as quickly as possible, so that we can put in a really strong bid for some of that social housing decarbonisation fund. So yeah. Also, just to touch on the the element of only having Curry and Brown come forward for the bid. I think the very fact that it is such a large piece of work would automatically cut out a lot of the smaller providers because they just would not have the infrastructure to support it. We've worked very closely with the procurement portal. They are very comfortable with all the due diligence that they have done around Curry and Brown. They are seen as being a leader in the field. So as much as it's a shame that we didn't have more people come back, I think we have ended up with somebody who is very good. And certainly the negotiations that, you know, Graham, Liam, myself, whatever have had, they've given me a huge level of comfort that this is absolutely within their comfort zone. They're not going to struggle to deliver this for us. They're going to be able to do it quite easily. They have worked on much larger full stock condition surveys in their history. So there should be some comfort drawn from that, I believe. This is not going to be a stretch for them. They clearly understand the expectations.
Thank you, Joe. Councillor Chairman, you still got your hand up.
Yeah, I have. Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to come back just with a couple of things, if I may. Joe, thank you very much. Still, just wanting to know that rough number. I appreciate that in 2011 you did an amount of stock condition surveys, and then you cloned the information from houses, which I understand that's done in local authorities.
Yes, it is.
Definitely, completely been there myself, understand that completely. And we will both know from cloning an assumption that that is very dangerous and
it is
to do.
Yeah.
So from a health and safety point of view, it's really dangerous to do. We have active tenants in our properties. We all know that people do their own DIY bits and pieces. So out of the, again, I'm just trying to get in my head, how many did we survey in 2011 without cloning? How many properties did we actually do a stock condition survey on? That's what I'm trying to understand. Because now we're 10 years down the line, and I'm just intrigued for my own knowledge where we started and where we are now. Because I don't want to be in 10 years' time anywhere near this situation. This is something that is imperative with the new guidance that is coming out. That if we don't want to face high fines from the HSE, we need to be getting this information in correct, know what we have and where it is, and be able to maintain that correctly. So I still would like to know that information. In 2011, how many properties of EDDC were actually surveyed? Whether someone can get back to me on that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to say I certainly, because obviously I wasn't here. I don't know whether John knows what that is, but certainly that is something that we can go away and we can get a response over to you.
I can add to that, Chair. So there was, from memory, 15% of the stock that was surveyed. So that's something like 700 homes were surveyed at the time. But of course, we've been adding to that information since that time, because we've got staff that are in and out of the properties all the time. And I'd like to give the board and Councillor Chamberlain in particular some reassurance around the data that we hold for compliance type issues. And some of it you've seen on the agenda today in our performance reports is absolutely as up to date as it can be. So things like gas servicing, asbestos, we've got good coverage and good knowledge of the stock, Legionella, those compliance type issues, our information is up to date, and I'll be surprised if the survey finds any anomalies or in that, because we put a lot of time and effort to ensuring that it's up to date, to ensure that we comply with our legal requirements and that objective that we have of keeping tenants safe. What the data, what the survey and investigations will find for us, no doubt, is information on things like I don't know, the condition of roofs, pointing, the structural sort of things that the building contains, which will inform our ability to shape our programs and our interventions. and hopefully do a lot more preventative maintenance. But we're quite happy to bring to the board data on compliance. We've done that before to reassure the board, and indeed I think it's something on our forward plan, so we intend to do that fairly shortly. And I know Michelle Davison, who looks after a lot of that stuff for us, is on the call, and no doubt will be putting this in her calendar for work to bring forward to the board at a future meeting. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, John. Okay, Councillor Hall, Ian.
Thank you for the report, Joe. A survey looking at these areas, and Councillor Chamberlain obviously comes from a really, really good knowledge background on these areas, and I absolutely endorse.
Yeah.
Around health and safety is our overarching area that we need to look at. One of the questions, Joe, with an area we covered already, Advantage Southwest, with the partners within there, who would they have used? Because keeping in mind we only had one coming to put in a tender for it. Is this a very well-known group, and they, being partners as they are, would they be able to feel out if there's any other organisations who could do this? Because again, I do agree, it's a bit concerning that we have only got one organisation putting in the tender. But it seems to me that we must be able to do this, and it's going to, scratching the surface, is going to come out of an incredible amount of unknowns. But we do need to absolutely be sure what we are actually dealing with, however good or however bad it is, so that we can actually plan for the future. Because I do sometimes look at the officers here, it must be like having one arm tied behind your back. You don't know actually what you're going into. But I'd be absolutely amazed if 4,200 homes can have a root and branch survey within 12 months. I mean, that would be a rapid turnaround, but I think it's absolutely needed. We need to see what's actually happening, and therefore I'm quite happy with this. But other than, it's just a shame we haven't got a couple of more organisations putting in the tender. Thank you. So the question really is, Joe, Advantage Southwest, please.
Sorry, Tony, did you want to say something?
No, over to you.
Right, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of other companies that could have bid for this, that are within the framework. However, they obviously decided it was too big for them. You know, this is a large amount of stock, and also there are some very complicated stock options in there. This isn't just housing. This is also, as I said, you know, this is also things like sewage plants, boreholes, shops, you know, blocks of flats, community centres. It's not your average run-of-the-mill survey. So I think, you know, to offer some comfort, you know, they are, if you Google Curry and Brown, you will see that they are leaders in the field as far as this is concerned. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that we've ended up doing a sort of a single point negotiation on this. In my experience, it doesn't always lead to sort of bad things. I have huge confidence in Curry and Brown. I think that we've had some very in-depth conversations with them now. They've responded fully and appropriately to the spec that we put forward to them. We have got the added safety net of the fact that we will go out to test surveys before we sign fully on the dotted line to ensure that actually they are giving us the information, not only that we need, but also in a format that we can use. So I don't know whether there would be any benefit really in going out to the sort of full market. It would certainly slow it down. It would slow it down probably by 6 to 12 months. But you know, obviously that is a decision for the board. That's not a decision that I can make. So I don't know whether that answers your question really, Ian.
It does answer the question, Joe, but I had to actually ask it. Thank you.
No, absolutely, completely understand.
Thank you. Councillor Chairman, your hand's back up.
I am so sorry, but this is something quite
Which is why I'm allowing
something
it.
that I know a lot about, and I sort of I want to get it right. I really want to get it right. It's something I've been involved with for years and years and years, and I would love to see this go forward and work 100%. I have to just go back to this. I know many big companies, and I'm shocked that we've only got one that have come back. It's not a company that I hear of that often. They may well have come back in brilliant, and it's matched what we want. If you are that confident with it, then that's fine. We've got nothing to compare it with, have we? They're very good, we're told, but we've got nothing to compare it with. We've got no comparison because we've got nobody else that's applied, nobody else who's put a scope, tender document, responded to it. So we hear they're very good. Let's just hope they are very good, because they need to be, because this piece of work has to be right.
Yes, it does.
And 12 months with that many surveys, I'm not convinced. I am not convinced that in 12 months they can do that many surveys with that much integration of work. Maybe they can, but I would be really surprised. Something else I'd like to add in if this goes forward, I'm sure we have a stock condition surveyor within the council somewhere, or even a building surveyor that has this knowledge that would be able to go out and audit one of their surveys. And that is really important, that we check the information that is being sent in to us is correct. Not just look at the paperwork that's coming in and go, oh God. I would like to see someone from the council go out and audit those surveys, a percentage of, to ensure that we are getting the correct value for money and the work is being done correctly and they agree with what is on that paperwork. That is so important. So if that can be added in somewhere, I'd really like to see it, and I'd love to see the results of that. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Sarah, that's already built in. That's already inbuilt in the thing. That's what the staffing structure is to support this, for exactly that, to sense check what we're getting in, and also to do some of those shadowings so that we can make sure that actually they are doing a full and robust job, that the data is appropriate, it meets the requirements of the specification. So yeah, no, that is already inbuilt. There's a project manager within the scope of works there, and also a surveyor to go out and shadow and sense check what's coming back. So yeah, please be assured that that's already included.
That's fantastic to hear. I just have worked in this business for so long. I know that staff get moved around and staff change, and the consistency within this large project needs to be consistent.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think with the view to the getting it all done within a year, that is purely around getting sufficient numbers of surveyors out there, and that's their problem. You know, they've told us they can do it in a year, so therefore they need to put enough surveyors to this contract in order to fulfil that requirement. It's quite explicit within our specification that we require it to be done within 12 months. So the risk for that is with them. They have to get the bums on seats doing appropriate, robust surveys in order to meet that deadline.
That's fantastic to hear. That also brings me back to staff in-house, the consistency of staff in-house, ensuring that that contract is pushed through properly and managed properly is key to this as well. Because if that changes, you've still got to have your staff in-house chasing the contract to make sure it's running on time. So it's the risk, it's in the contract tied up, I get that, but we just need to ensure that in-house we've got the staff chasing that with the knowledge correctly, keeping it going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why there's that, it's point 9.1. There is an illustration there of what we would expect the project team to look like.
Sorry, I just need to say it so that it's aired, because I want it to go right. I really do. and I'd support it in any way, and I would be on site there myself and help you, but I just need to say it because I you know, I want it to go right. So thank you.
Okay.
I promise I won't raise my hand again.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
Could I just say
Sorry,
thank you? Sorry, could I just say thank you to Sarah? Because actually I know we've had discussions like this in the past, and I think it's really, really helpful. Sarah, thank you that you challenge us on things like this, so that we know we're then having to think, well, actually, have we covered that? So thank you very much for that. It kind of keeps us honest. So thank you.
No, that's fantastic. And that's great to hear from you as well. So brilliant. Thank you ever so much. And you're more than welcome.
Okay, Councillor Hall.
Again, thank you to Councillor Chamberlain for a real good inside knowledge of such things. Looking at it and looking at case studies or using their test surveys or models of how they go about these areas, I'm just looking for solutions for you, Chair. Now, we know that we have officers are going to be shadowing. I get that, absolutely. But when we're actually looking at an area like this, do the board feel it would be appropriate and safe to do so, that member or members of the HRB can actually also join officers so we can actually see what's actually happening? Because this, as I've already said, needs to be happen. I just feel that would really give us that assurance from a board member viewpoint that we have been involved in all the areas here, as well as obviously listening to our very valued officers. But I just think that may be a consideration we could do. And I just feel if Councillor Chamberlain is in a position to do so, if this is what the board would like to do, I think that would be just such an advantage for us as the Housing Review Board, or alternately, if any other member. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Right, anybody want to come back on that one before I move on?
I don't have any problem with member oversight. I mean, it would be around the logistics of such a thing. Obviously, we would have to notify Curry and Brown, but I don't see them having any issue with that either. So yeah, it's certainly something that we could explore.
Yeah, if any member of the board wishes to get involved, then let John know, and or yourself, Joe.
Yeah,
we'll see what we can do. Okay, Megan.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just going back to thank you to Sarah for all her investigative questions, very helpful. And although I obviously don't have her experience in this particular field, I do have experience in other fields where I'm like a dog with a bone, basically, and I don't let anything get away from me that I think needs to be investigated. And professionals have to do the job properly. And I've had long discussions about this, both with Joe and with John, about a lot of the questions that you've been asking. And I understand that a lot of this is about going forward in the expectation and the hope and the trust that this organisation will do what it's supposed to do. And I think with all these various checks and balances that we're putting in place, I have every confidence that it will be. And they know what the consequences will be, presumably, Joe, if they don't.
Yeah,
we've had that sort of conversation endlessly, haven't we?
Yeah.
So just to reassure Sarah, to thank her very much for her input, but to reassure her that there are certainly questions that I've been asking as well. And just about that last one from Ian about the board members helping with the shadowing, I think that in theory that might be okay. I need to discuss that with Joe and with John about the logistics of doing it, and that it's done in an appropriate way. Then that we don't have a whole load of board members just turning up one day and deciding they want to see what's going on. It's got to be done properly. Yeah. and appropriately, and I'm sure Ian would agree with that, but it's certainly a good question to ask, so thank you for that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Megan. I see Councillor Chamberlain's back again.
I'm really sorry I had to, just with the implications of obviously shadowing in site inspections, I'm not sure if everyone is aware or not, but certain sites need certain qualifications to attend those sites. So some of the sites may need certain qualifications of a test of a CS, what they call a CSCS card. And before you ask, yes, I have got one. But I knew before I have to come back and answer that question. I have a surveyor one. But yeah, so I'm not sure 100% for anybody and everybody to turn up on a site, depending on what type of site it's classed as, would be appropriate under health and safety. But definitely some of them, I think it would be great for people to see some of it and what actually goes on with it. So yeah, I would support that going forward completely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, anybody else?
Chair, can I offer some advice at this point, please?
Certainly.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd just like to just run this past you and also with our solicitor who's present. But you're in an unusual situation here where you have a report on the stock condition survey that spans both Part A and Part B.
Yeah.
Within those two reports, agenda item 19 and 21, the recommendation is the same. My advice would be that you note this item 19, so that you can ask any questions you might have within those Part B conditions, and there may be some queries, and certainly with conversation that I've heard so far, particularly from Councillor Chamberlain on the choice of contractor, I think it'd be worth members, just so that they make a full and informed recommendation with all the facts before them, is, as I say, to note this report and then to put forward whatever recommendation the board feel is appropriate to Cabinet and Council under Part B conditions for item 21. Can I just check with the solicitor that he concurs with my advice, that would be the best move forward?
Well, that's excellent advice you've given there, Debbie, and I would totally concur with that. It seems sensible to note the report and fundamentally the project going forward on agenda 19, and then you can actually have a more focused discussion on financials and the nominated contractor at 21, and then obviously if you want to make further recommendations at that point, then that's the appropriate point to do that when we're in Part B.
Okay, advice taken, I think. Sorry.
And Chair, can I just say, as we are about to move into Part B, because the first report is for noting, you can actually just, if you can just read out the Part B declaration for the purposes of the meeting, and then I'm not sure that we need to. Well, the Democratic Services would, I think, briefly pause the meeting to ensure that the right people are admitted to the second part of the HRB meeting.
Yeah, and it also might be an appropriate time also to take a 5-minute comfort break.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, please.
So,
okay.
if you could just confirm if you're happy to take that advice,
yeah.
if the board are happy to take that advice.
Yeah,
just note this one, and then I'll get the slide ready, and if you're happy, we'll take a very brief break while we ensure that.
Yeah.
Do you want to read the infamous words before we go into break?
Yeah, I think I better. Yeah, I think I better. Well, we need to, because obviously we need to get rid of the public and press or whatever. Okay, under section 100A, paragraph 4, I assume it is, of the Local Government Act 1972, and in accordance with the local authorities, exclusive arrangements, meetings, and access of information in the regulation 212, the public, including the press, be excluded from the meeting as accepting private information as set out against each Part B agenda item. It is likely to be disclosed, and on balance, the public interest is in discussion. The item is in private session, Part B. What a mouthful. So, so obviously we now move into Part B. We thank everyone for joining in, but we now must take it back to committee only. So thank you all very much. And I ask that we end this session and have a 5-minute break before we resume Part B.
Chair, can I suggest that I make it 12:15. Can I suggest that we reconvene at 25 past?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.